But of course, Jay couldn't make it because he's a little. No, I'm gonna leave him
Because he's a
alone.
slacker. No.
He's a slacker. There you go. That's nice. I like that. There you go, slacker. Yeah, you're a good guy. But no, let's start off with the show question. I'm sure you've all read it, but here it is. How far do you see yourself realistically going in indie comics? Okay, because this is, I know, a question that we've all had to stare in the eye at some point, right? So, Anthony, let's start with you.
I'm gonna go until my heart stops.
That's fair.
Realistically, no, I got a severe heart condition that's kind of killing me, but at the same time, it's kind of like I'm on meds that slow it down to a point where I can somewhat live a normal life. But I plan on doing comic books until I can't, physically do it anymore. Bad Wabbits, definitely my baby. I've got like 20, 21 issues planned on that and a couple of spinoffs and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. Unless, God says differently.
All right. That's fair. It's funny. There are a bunch of us here. We're all like, yeah. Randy.
Yeah. Well, what Castro said. Yeah, I'm gonna just keep doing it till I can't. So the wife's retiring this month, and we're going through all the wonderful government paperwork. And but I'm still gonna be here doing comics. It's just what I want to do.
Right.
It's it one form or another, whether I'm writing and drawing or doing whatever, packaging, who knows what. So yeah.
Okay, fair enough. James, what are your thoughts?
Well, your question is how far that we realistically can go, right?
Right.
That's the premise. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So while I'm in a similar category to Castro and Randy, where I don't plan on, not doing it, about how far you can go, that's a combination between your perseverance and whether or not the fans like you. Now, as far as I go, I know I'm not a house style guy. I'm never going to be Dan Dido. I'm never going to be Jim Lee. I gave up on that a very long time ago because I don't draw that way. I don't think that way. And I don't tell stories that way. However, are you guys familiar with the story of Wendy Pini?
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
Gotcha. So she's the lady behind ElfQuest. And holy crap, you want to talk about perseverance. Between her and her husband fighting with film studios over abandoned animation rights, or fighting with Marvel and winning, and fighting with Marvel and losing, and then having DC come back and helping them. Dude, it's a huge roller coaster. And like Castro and Randy said, they just didn't stop until they were ready to. Mm-hmm. And even then, they still came back. The way I look at it is this. What I want it to be is I would like if I got my the way I see it, I would love to be something in the realms of somebody like James O'Barr, where I put every emotion I have into it and I keep doing it, and then one day one of the pieces that I do it gets basically connected with enough fans where it blows up and makes something of itself.
There you go.
Now all I can do is persevere. All I can do is keep building. All I can do is keep learning from the fans. And all I can do is keep making good comics. That's what I can control. The rest of it is really up to the timing about either when fans and readers grow beyond the basic base, or when I get off my ass and do enough marketing.
There's the hard part.
There it is. There it is. All right. Tom, what are your thoughts?
So tell me, I want to know, give me your phrasing of this question again.
How far do you see yourself realistically going in indie comics?
In indie comics.
In indie
as
comics.
Opposed to, do we want to leap out of indie comics and go somewhere else?
Right.
Like,
but I mean,
or movies or film.
Right, but
or even to Marvel or DC or any of that kind of stuff.
Well, I guess
like
mainstream technically could fall.
If you want to expand it to that, feel free.
Well, yeah, I mean, Yeah, I mean, James is right. Everything about how far you go is a combination of how much you work and how much the work matters to whoever's buying it. I mean, those are the two. Those are the two. That's A and B. It's the same coin. You have to flip it constantly, and get the right result when you need the right result. So for me, I still really don't have a lot of like forethought as far as like, well, I want to get to Marvel, I want to get to DC. I don't really have that. To some degree, I have it a little more than I used to, just because I understand, but it's for the wrong reason, which is why I'm not really chasing it. I understand the value of doing it. I understand the value of being able to tell conventions, I worked for DC and I worked for Marvel, and I matter now because I worked for those things, because there's so many conventions that it doesn't matter what you do for those companies. If you can say and officially tell them, I worked for Marvel on Spider-Man, this is what I did, that has value to those conventions. And even if you're doing your own indie stuff, they will still look at you as a Marvel guy and be like, hey, we've got a Marvel guy at our con. So there's value in that, right? But I don't have like this drive to be like, I got to get over to DC and write Wonder Woman. Like that's not an internal thing for me. So all of my creative energy is my own stuff. So for me, I think the current realistic value is, how do I continue to elevate what I do, both in the actual execution of the stuff and like the marketing of the stuff to make it more valuable to the general audience. The problem is, and this is a problem, is we've reached a point in society, in pop culture, in all things that are consumed, that comics are almost passé now, because everything revolves around video. Like even social media, like TikTok, it's all video. You can't just go in there and make a comment, I'm out. Like it has to be a video of some kind. People are watching YouTube, constantly. It's all video. Comics just sit there on the page. And I think that is something that we have to really, as an industry, look at this and go, God damn it. Maybe the one of the next things we have to do is figure out, and I'm not talking about making like motion comics and stuff like that, although it's not a terrible idea, but it's been tried and, hasn't really worked. But I almost feel like what we do as comics, we have to add an element of it to the video world, the people that want to watch something. Whether you're doing a lot of like just little mini ads that have visuals, going around in them all the time that can catch some attention, whether you're creators doing these kinds of shows so that people can see you and talk to you and, realize that you're not just the comic guy. It's also that you hate every movie. Like, that's fine. Anything that you can do to sort of almost rise above the comic itself, right, as the paper product, is kind of where we have to lean. And I think that pop culture is ready for that. They're ready for the stuff that they don't know what it is. Invincible is one of those perfect examples, right? That's a thing that nobody knew what the fuck that was, except for comic book guys. And I was just at a store signing yesterday, and
the producers who helped back it, get it over on there, and we're backing up on Walking Dead. That's a terrible example.
Well,
that's an example
what I'm
where all
saying
these
is
industry behind the scenes guys go. This
but
guy
that's
just
the behind
made-
the scenes. What I'm saying is when you bring it to the audience, the general populace of the world doesn't know what Invincible is.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, Hollywood has their, hey, we know who Kirkman is. What else does he do? But you don't see like everything Robert Kirkman on TV right now. Invincible was a book that sold at its high point at about 16,000 copies. That was like its high point. It was almost canceled in its first year multiple times before Ryan Otley came on. So it's not Superman. It's not Batman. It's not Wonder Woman. It's not a known entity for the general, world. So when something like Invincible can come on, and not just come on, but be hyper successful, like it has humongous ratings, humongous, fan, whatever they call it, voting, whatever. They liked what it was. It wasn't just, hey, here's the thing, and people were like, don't care. They loved what it was. So
Yeah.
I think that pop culture as a bubble, and we talk about superhero fatigue and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if it's superhero fatigue so much as just like that pocket fatigue, right? We've seen Batman Forever. We've seen 15 years of Iron Man and all that kind of stuff. Maybe that's the stuff that's sort of like, what else do you have? And then here came Invincible, right?
For me,
So-
it's like recycled stories, and you see the same kind of stuff over and over. You get burned out on it. But like you said, Invincible came out, and man, that was different, but it was the same, but different. It was,
It's
gory.
what people understand. It's superheroes, right? But it's
Yeah.
also very different from what we understand in a lot of other stuff. So I think that because of the reaction and because of the and again, yes, it's attached to Kirkman. That's a good thing. But this is sort of my point: is make what you make as good as you can make it. And if you can sell one thing, that means you can probably sell another thing. But if the doors come open, where it's like, what does indie comics have for us? We've seen Invincible now. What else exists? Now that doesn't mean they're come running to us. We're still a low man on the totem pole, but eventually some of these properties are going to start to get picked up, and that can allow us to sneak in here and there. And I think there's going to be sort of a like survive as long as you can, stay ahead of things as long as you possibly can, because that's how you reach the doors. So for me, it's all about just kind of making the product the best that I can make it, presenting it in the best way possible, whether I'm at cons, whether I'm doing, video stuff, anything that you can do to make the property more valuable to the culture. That's got to be where you kind of have to, focus where your
I totally
future is
agree.
at.
Totally agree. I've been told so many times that Bad Rabbit would be a great TV series, as far as like, something like Primal, just, short series, or short episodes, but like in the series. And I've been told that so many times, and it's like, dude, I would totally do it. But the point is, it has to land on someone's desk willing to, go that route and take that step.
or because of things like crowdfunding and stuff,
Yeah.
there are people who just have done it themselves.
Mhm.
Right? Even Zenoscope, a number of years ago, they did a Kickstarter to do some sort of like a 30 or 45-minute episode of one of their comics. I can't remember what it was called, but they raised like $100,000. And they got this thing done, and they partnered with a studio, and the studio was like, look, it's going to take $100,000 to do this. And Zenoscope was like, all right, let's go to our fans, let's go to the world and say, we're going to make a Zenoscope Grim Fairy Tales cartoon, and this is what we need. And they made it happen. It literally happened. And then that door opened them to be able to do what they're doing now with Van Helsing, is a TV show, like a live action TV show, and they're doing other things with their stuff. So sometimes you don't even have to wait for the door to open. You can kind of kick it in yourself if you've gotten yourself to a point where you have some sort of word of mouth in the industry, some sort of aspect enough that you have a reach. If you're doing enough cons and the cons will support you, hey, we're going to put you on a panel and we're going to tell everybody that you're doing a Kickstarter for this TV show, whatever it is. But you have to make yourself valuable just in doing the work. And yes, you can wait for the producers to find you, but the more you do on your own, particularly if you are getting outside of just, hey, I made a piece of paper.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
You got to take other steps, and that'll help you kind of level up. So that's where I'm at. I'm kind of thinking about how can I take what I've done now for 15 years that has worked, but now how do I take extra steps and sort of, start to push it into that kind of Brian Pulido methodology of like bigger, better, larger, grander, all that kind of stuff. And none of that happens overnight. He's been doing it now for almost 30 years. So, that's that.
All right. Fair enough. Rob, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, realistically for me, I honestly would just keep on. I like Nightwolf to me has always been an ongoing series in my mind, so I plan on going and stretching it out as far as I can go. But I also have other titles that I want to explore. So realistically, I think, as things are kind of like on their own 2 feet, like if Nightwolf and Snowpaw can kind of live on their own funding, if you will, I'd like to be able to get onto those other titles and do more work and kind of spread out that I don't just do werewolf books, because I do have, I have a different type of supernatural series. I have a post-apocalyptic superhero idea. I have, a bunch of different things that I want to like kind of tap into the universe or the world that I've built and just continually, do stuff. And I also have some other things that are like universe related that I want to tap into as well, just to kind of like, see how far I can take things. So for me, as far as just keep on putting my head down, doing the work, doing the marketing, doing this, going to cons, as long as I can, keep doing it, I'm going to spread, as far as I can. And if I can make the right contacts, if somebody wants to, make a deal with the IP somewhere along the lines, I could realistically see that happening. Though getting to that point is, as everybody said, it's not in my control unless I try. Like basically, if I don't try to make those connections, that's where I fail, right? So as long as I'm still doing what I'm doing, still trying to make connections, still networking, I feel like just sky's the limit. Just keep going, keep chugging along at it, keep hitting it, and I'm stubborn as shit, so I'm not going to stop unless the fans tell me they don't want it anymore. That's the point where it's like I can't do it anymore, because without the fans buying the books, reading the books, and I don't have any money to produce it, because let me tell you, my wife would skin me alive if I started taking out of our savings again, because we're past that point. So that's realistically, as long as it's paying for itself, I think at this point we're going to keep rolling.
Heck yeah.
Good. For myself, I've gotten to a point with the Oswald Chronicles where, I got the first 8 issues in color. I'm moving in that direction, and it's been a thought of mine to start offering it up to larger publishers. And when I say larger publishers, I mean like Penguin Random House, Ingram, Scholastic, that sort of thing. Try to go that route. See if they'd be willing to pick it up. You know what I mean? I expect to get 32 rejections, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. So so I have to try.
If you don't try, you don't. 100 times
exactly. You'll never know. Right. I might catch some editor, who just might be drunk or something, and they might be like, "Yeah, why not the mouse?"
Dude, if Conan Vasquez can work for Nickelodeon after making Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, then there is room for those publishers to look and see the value of something like Oswald Chronicles. Yep. It's really like he's like Tom and Rob are talking about contacts. It's about working on it, doing the contacts, and doing the storytelling and you can't let any one of those things die.
Yeah,
we're really, when you look at some of the other more famous examples, like Conan Vasquez, he's really become a storyteller, not just a comic book guy. And when you look at other guys like Jim Henson, he wasn't just a puppeteer. Oh, yeah. There's all kinds of other opportunities, but they have to be built off of our backs, built off of our effort, built off of our hustle. And part of it is, like you said, hey, you know what? I think this can work with another publisher. Let me go and take it to them. Let me do that with them and see how far I can take it that way. Let me take it a different way. The medium of independent comic books, I think, is kind of a misnomer, because it's really just a stepping stone into other things. Nobody just makes an independent comic book and like stays there forever, unless you're Crumb, and Crumb's crazy as hell. There's going to be those outlying examples, but for anybody who wants to do anything and be successful at anything or any one thing, once you get to that one thing, you have to kind of choose how you're going to parallel into something else, or you kind of stagnate and just stop. So I think one of the reasons why everybody here has talked more so about their effort, more so about just continuing working, is because they don't want to see an end. They don't want to see a pinnacle position, because that's not what it's about. It's about, I love doing this. It's about, I love telling stories. in many of our cases, myself included, it's I have to tell stories, and I want to get it in front of as many people as possible. This happens to be where my skills lie, and this is where I'm starting. There are a lot of examples, if you really look into it, in all of the pop culture and all of the different types of media where they cross over constantly. I used to do storyboards for independent films. I did that before I did comics. There's little crossovers at every opportunity, and it just is about what you're going to do with the project and how far you're going to keep working on it. And like Rob said, listening to the fans, when that's something we could all do better, right? WWE is completely based on listening for when the fans cheer and doing more of it, and listening when the fans get quiet and doing less of that. And some of us take our projects and hold them quite personal and are afraid to listen to those voices. And then there's other guys where they're really good at listening to those voices. And, you know, that's how you get somebody like Kirkman and his, you know, undead zombie machine, letting him cross all kinds of bridges.
That's true. Good point. Good point. Thank you. All right. So there it is. None of us know what we're doing. No, I'm only joking. Rob.
None of us limit what we're doing.
Yeah,
Not just that, but we're all a little crazy on this bus.
Yeah.
If we weren't, we wouldn't be doing comics.
There we go.
Rob, you're up.
My question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so since we've been talking IPs, so if you had the opportunity and the connections to work on any IP that is not a public domain, that is not Marvel or DC, and that is not currently being produced, so that basically leaves you to anything that's not a comic book right now, done, you know, owned by Marvel, DC, or that is already public domain that anybody can do. So like basically you have to have the rights to be able to do it. So like an old TV show, an old cartoon, an old comic book, what have you, anything. What would it be and why?
Randy, you're up.
Oh, write a comic off of a property. I don't know, my favorite TV show is Journeyman, which practically nobody's heard of. That's a great time loop story about a guy who keeps getting yanked back in time in order to fix little things that stop a large thing from happening. That's a great show. Only ran for about 13 episodes. Got caught in not this writer's strike, but the writer's strike before that. If you ever get a chance to find it, it's phenomenal. And the writer was allowed to loop. He knew that his time was short with the network. It was on NBC, so he was able to loop the story back around to show exactly what he was planning on doing. And I think that was pretty close to genius. I wouldn't mind doing that. Comic books, I don't know. I'm always a big space in my heart for the oddball Marvel and DC character. I made a number of pitches in my earlier misspent youth, trying to get a little bit of that out. But I've still got a supernatural soap opera I've always wanted to play with. That is very much an updating, not really an updating, but more of a modernization of the ideal that was Dark Shadows. That was fun. I wouldn't mind doing that on a regular basis, but Gene Colan's no longer on this earth, so I'd have to find an artist that could match it. A big fan of his Dracula, with him and Palmer and Wolfman when it was out. I don't know what else. Everything else is just oddball Marvel and DC characters, and you know. Other than that, I'm kind of doing a little bit of everything now. So,
all right.
And I had no idea a year and a half ago I'd end up being, writing Sword and Sorcery, but here you are, or here I am. So,
too true. All right, fair enough. James, what are your thoughts?
Ooh, I'm a big fan of pulp.
Yeah.
I love Elric Melnibone. I love old Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All of those do have their different rights, but a lot of them have landed in public, and are continuously being used. Like John Carter, if Disney didn't have a hold of him, would probably be my first choice.
Yeah.
And do the Mars stuff. But if I was going to do something that had a similar flavor, I would try to pick something like I don't know, Tanar of Pellicular, or one of those, land lost in time kind of things that is filled with a combination of sword and sorcery and alchemy and steampunkiness and dinosaurs and there's a lot of realm inside of that pulp area, things like the Shadow, things, stuff like that. But I was a huge fan of those, and I played a lot of Palladium games, and a lot of Palladium was based on those kinds of settings. So they've got all these worlds where it's a mixture of science and technology and magic and things like that, and a mixture that's about adventure and about heroes that are actually heroic and things like that. So as long as it's got a heroic hero in it that I can feel like it is going to be inspiring, I would chase something like that down. If I was searching for a public entity, and it would probably be something from Edgar Rice Bros.
All right. Cool. Anthony, who would you like?
As far as comic books go, I don't really know, but I always thought, as far as TV shows go, that Have Gun Will Travel would be a good series. If you could bring, the Western aspect to it, I think that should have. I'm surprised nobody's done it. I'm surprised nobody's went and made us some kind of black and white, Western series out of it. It was a good show. And I've watched it quite a few times from beginning to end. So I always thought it was a really good show. And, I like Westerns.
A lot of those old Westerns are incredibly solid. Really great writing. Just fantastic to listen to. Yeah. Timeless, too.
Yeah. I mean, Richard Boone did a good job as Paladin. So, I mean, he sold the part pretty well. And I just think that it would be good to have a series where you can have one story per issue. It doesn't have to necessarily be this ongoing thing, because that's how the show was. It was you had a beginning, middle, and end in every episode. So it was good.
That's what I loved about the first 2 seasons of Supernatural. It was a different monster every week. I don't need an apocalypse every season.
Yeah.
I don't need that at all. I prefer Monster of the Week style stuff. You get a lot more creative things. It's okay to have a burst of 4 or 5 here or there that are all connected, but like Stan Sakai, when he writes, like a lot of his stories feel like they're the only part of that story. And that's kind of how it started. But then some of those characters will reappear later on, connecting the stories. But it's not that he sits down and scripts out this post-apocalyptic yokai demon hunting samurai rabbit stuff.
True. All right.
So yeah, I mean, that would be my pick.
All right, cool. Tom, what are your thoughts?
So there's 3 things that I've actually had active talks about with owners about bringing stuff to comics. All 3 had their own unique ways of coming to an end. None of them because of my fault. The first was, and this would be at the top of my list eternally, is Land of the Lost, the old 70s Sid and Marty Krofft dinosaur show. And when I was starting to get into comics, I had talks with Krofft about that. We even produced pitch pages and sent them to him, and they were like, "God damn, this is really good." And I was like, "This is what we can do. We can make this really, really good." And they were like, "The problem is, there's already a comic publisher that we've been in talks with that is essentially ready to go with this." And I was like, man, that sucks. I can't believe it. I understand, blah, blah, whatever. And they were like, yeah, it just was, wrong place, wrong time, and so on. And I won't mention this publisher because they fucked it all up for all of us. But what happened was I was watching. I was like, where book? What's happening? Because they said, yeah, they're going to sign the contract and get this done. Suddenly it popped up in previews. And I was like, oh shit, there it is. It's actually happening. Oh my God. But nothing made sense. The description of it didn't make sense to what the image was that was there. Like the description was about the old 70s show. The picture was about the 90s remake. I was like, something's wrong. I don't understand what's happening here. And so the next previews came out. There was nothing there. And I thought, okay, well, maybe it's just bi-monthly, or maybe that was an oversized one shot. Next previews came out, nothing there. Next previews came out, nothing there. I said, something's wrong. I got a hold of Croft again. I said, hey, what happened to that Land of the Lost thing? I saw it solicited in Diamond, and then it never came back. She says, what do you mean? I said, well, I saw the company. They put it into the submissions catalog for stores to buy, but it was only there once, and then it was never there. And she says, can you show me that? And I said, yeah. So I took a picture of the thing, and I sent it to her. Like, this was an active thing in the industry. I said, yeah, this is the actual catalog. She says, they never signed the contract. So what happened was, and this is in my brain, what happened is they solicited the book to see what kind of response they could get. They got a bad response and backed out and never signed the contract. But at that point, she was like, oh man, Sid and Marty are not going to like this. And I said, nice. So probably I need to just go away because there's no way I can step into this. She was like, no, probably not. But if something happens, I will let you know. And then that just went kaput. And then of course the movie came out, which also tanked. And then that was the end of all of that stuff back then. So so that was Land of the Lost. The second one that I still would love to do is based on the Howling, the movie from the 80s. Well, it was books first, and then it became a movie in the 80s. So I actually had lunch with Gary Brandner, who wrote the books, and I wanted to talk to him about it because I kind of figured he didn't have the rights, but I figured he could take me to have the rights. And so we had a great lunch, and he was like, yeah, unfortunately, this is the guy who has the rights, and he's a little hard to deal with. And so I said, okay, well, just give me what you can give me, what you're comfortable with. I'll go to him and we'll talk about it. And so I went and I talked to him, and immediately he went on the defensive. Like I was trying to swipe this from him. He was like, look, here's my contract. I own this. Just like we said, I own this throughout every incarnation in all universes, throughout the parallel dimension. Like I was like, yo, I just want to license the thing. Like, just tell me what you need for me to make comic books. And he was like, hey, he went through this whole spiel. They were about to make this new movie, Howling Reborn, I think, whatever it was called. And he basically made that so that he could hold on to the rights, because he had to, make something every so often in order to hold on to the rights, or it would revert back to Gary. So they made this movie and it came out and it was terrible, but he still had the rights. So then he says, so look, instead of doing the comics, what if I showed you the script for the next movie and you told me what you thought about it? I said, yeah, I can do that. Let me do that. So he sends me the script and I read it and I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know, but I have a solution for you. I have a way to fix this problem that the Howling has had for 40 years. And he says, what? And I said, look, the one thing that Freddie has and Jason has and Michael has is Freddie and Michael and Jason. Like they're there all the time. The Howling is just a series of unconnected films that the fans are like, okay, it's another werewolf movie. Who cares? So I said, all you have to do is at the end of this film, I won't get too deep into it. I didn't sign an NDA. I could tell you anything I wanted, but anyway, at the end of this movie, there was an opportunity to basically indicate that this story, which would have felt unconnected, was part of the Quists connection, which for those that don't know, the Howling, the Quists are the werewolves from the original movie. Mm-hmm. So I said, all you have to do is put the Quists in this piece right here, and you immediately connect it to what all the fans know and love and want. And he said, that's the smartest thing any one of my writers has ever told me. And I said, I told you I can fix this. And he said, yeah, but we can't do it. And I said, what do you mean? He says, because MGM still owns the rights to the original movie, right? He owned the rights to the books. They own the movie. So his concern was, even though the Quists are in the book, they're also in the movie. So if he were to put Quist in that scenario, his thought process was that MGM could hold him up in court long enough for him to lose the rights. And he was like, we can't do it. We can't do it. We have to just make the movie without it and retain my rights. And so we started to butt heads on that, and I was like, dude, and so that fell apart. But then of course it ended up being a comic book from Space Goat Comics produced just a absolutely nonsense. What the hell is this 6-issue miniseries? It did have a cool Brian Stelfreeze cover that I liked, but so it did happen, which really kind of bent me out of shape. But and I know he still has the rights, but I know he's also over at a specific studio, so I know how to go get it again if I wanted to. But those would be the two that are like right there, and I want them.
All right, fair enough. I think Rob, you tailor made this question for me because I got a lot of answers, man. And I've mentioned a few of them before. So Americomics was a big thing when I was a kid. So Captain Paragon is one of those characters I'd love to get a hold of, and I would just, there's a 4-issue limited series, and I would just pick up where that last issue ended, because I know they continued the character, and I think they killed him in Femforce or something. I don't even know what happens, but I would just continue it from that point. The other one is Phase 1 Phasers by Vic Bridges, also Americomics. Dragon Force, which was Aircell, and that's where Dale Keown premiered.
Man, you are in the weeds like Jay last night, man.
Yeah,
you are in the weeds.
Oh yeah, and then the really big one I'd love to get my hands on would be the entire library, all of the damn characters from Neil Adams Continuity Comics, and actually write some good books for those characters,
including Skate Man.
Well, that's not part of the library.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like that was like an ad thing that he had done, and they just
they just doctored it.
Go get it. Go talk to the estate and go get it, and I'll write Valeria. And, we'll be fine.
Valeria Shebat. Yeah, I could do that. But yeah, man, because I'd love to do Toy Boy and Megalith and Shaman and Armor and all those crazy characters, Silver Streak. I mean, there was a bunch of fun characters, beautiful images, but man, I love Neil, and he had a partner over there. Those dudes were not writers. Those dudes are not writers. And I buy those comics religiously in dollar boxes. I see them, and I'm trying to put together the whole collection. I try to read them. Oh, that's just not happening.
They're a mess. Yeah.
It's not happening. But I love what they did. Anyway, Rob, you're up. What's your answer?
So it's not. So mine isn't so much that are in comics. Or at least I know one of them was, but I think it did through Marvel temporarily. But it was there's 3 cartoons that really didn't make it much past their first season or 2. And they're very obscure. One, I don't even know if anybody's heard of, but one of them is called Vitar Starfire Champion. It was kind of like a very like old 90s, like really obscure cartoon that didn't last very long at all, but it was like kind of like a futuristic post-apocalyptic thing. So that's one that I would love to kind of like just totally get that and just really blow it up in the comics mainstream if I could, just because I loved it as a kid and I really thought it had something going for it. It just never made it past even like the first season. Another one would be Jace and the Wheeled Warriors. That one I feel needs to have its ending, and that was another one that I don't think it made it past the first season. But like in general, like the idea is so again post-apocalyptic kind of futuristic thing, very very fun. For see, there you go. Yeah, Sawboss. Yeah, so like the designs for those things are freaking amazing. I just I wish the writers in there weren't just little brain things, were like actual characters, from the show. But of course, the toys came first, then the show, just like everything in the 80s. And then another one was owned by Hanna-Barbera, and I think Marvel did do like a first run, but they don't technically own the rights to it, so it kind of negates my being owned by Marvel thing. Would be the Pirates of Darkwater. From the 90s.
Oh yeah,
that's another one for me that I would really love to be able to kind of finish that because they leave you almost to the end of it. I mean, like, I think there was only a few more treasures that he had left to get before like actually finishing this whole thing off. So, and I thought it was for a Hanna-Barbera serious take cartoon, I thought it was done rather well.
No,
Yeah, it was a pretty good show.
Probably the best at that time period. Yeah.
Yeah.
very nice.
Well, we're in that sort of moment of time right now where all of this 80s stuff is becoming comics. I mean, Thundar has his first ever comic.
Yeah.
The Herculoids. Well, the Herculoids were in a comic at one point, but now they have their own series, and
Yeah.
all this stuff is coming back. Thundercats, whatever. So it's definitely opportunity is there. And what I found interesting about the fact that like Thundar and the Herculoids came out is that that's Warner Brothers, and so I always assumed like, and they have done it. Like DC did do some of that stuff. They did some Herculoids and other things, through their own.
The Space Ghost stuff. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's interesting to me that they were just like, just license that shit out. We don't need to hassle with it anymore. But I mean, I guess however we get it. So, take it.
I'd love to do a series. I'd love to do a series of some of the most lamest superheroes, like just get them from all the properties, Ice Cream, Arm Fall Off Man, Boy, and all that stuff, and just like put them in a comic and just have them do the most ridiculous shit.
Just make your own Leg Fall Off Boy. It's fun.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, what was it? Ice Cream could turn into any flavor of ice cream, and that was his superpower. It's like
fall apart, man.
yeah.
So I mean,
Somebody give me a hand.
that's not bad.
Those
It's
old
not-
Legion of Substitute Heroes that Keith Giffen did are just classic, just great stuff. Yeah. Stone Boy, Chlorophyll Kid, Infectious Lass. If you haven't seen those, oh yeah, if you haven't seen those, Porcupine Pete was one of those. It was all of the
These all sound like
characters
the Men in Mystery and the Flaming Carrot World.
exactly. Yeah, the characters would all get together with the Legion and apply for Legion membership, and if they were rejected because they were stupid, they'd all get together and form a club of the Legion of Substitute Heroes. There was Night Lass, who only was super powered at night, and Polar Boy, who could shoot cold, but there was Stone Boy, who turned himself into a stone statue, and Chlorophyll Kid, who is an overweight dude who carried a bunch of seeds and pouches all around his stomach, and then he could throw them out and make them grow real big.
What was that one character from what was that one movie with all the he had Pee Wee Herman in it?
The Mystery Men.
Yeah. He could only, that one guy could only turn invisible when nobody was looking at him.
Yeah.
On the spleen.
And the spoon. Yeah. It's great stuff.
That's funny.
Dane Cook is explaining that he's the Waffle Mater.
Yeah.
And he's running in slow motion, trying to make a theme song and asking if they have dental. I've always wanted to do a comic book that was actually about the warehouse where when the supervillains get busted, their stuff has to go somewhere. And warehouses are run so that everybody's on this by like the lowest paid dorks on the face of the planet. I know because I'm one of them. I'm an inventory control manager. So I know that somewhere in these worlds there is dangerous Dr. Doom level equipment being handled by minimum wage employees.
That's funny.
All right, Anthony, we got Bad Wabbit up. So you want me to play this video?
That's completely up to you. It's mostly a music video, but it does show you a lot of the internal pictures, and I got a section in there where it shows some really good reviews. But I mean, that's up to you.
Well, let's see it.
Let's see.
In a dying world, ruled by a tyrannical empire, the inhabitants cry out for a savior, someone selfless, brave, and heroic, someone like this guy. Yeah, this guy. I know he doesn't look like much. Let's give him a chance. He might surprise you.
Well, everyone is saying it's time to go, but feel. Then I'll find you where you sleep, and I'll rent you with my head. I'll make you pay in blood. Whoa, I'll make you pay in blood. Whoa, the time has come to get real, and no matter where you go, I won't be far away. Soon I catch far enough to feel. Then I'll find you where you sleep, and I'll rent you with my head. I'll make you pay in blood. Whoa, I'll make you pay in blood. Whoa. Well, everyone is dead, it's time for you. But just know I lie awake, and I never liked you anyway. Soon I catch fire enough to feel. Then I'll find you where you sleep, and I'll brand you with my head. I'll make you pay in blood. Whoa, I'll make you pay in blood. Whoa, I'll make you pay in blood. I'll make you pay in blood. Whoa, I'll make you. I'll make you. I'll make you. I'll make you. I'll make you pay in blood.
All right. Cool.
I actually know that band. They're awesome.
Nice. So they let you use the music.
Oh yeah. He said that you can use that as Bad Wabbit's theme song if you want. I was like, cool. So
Nice.
there it is. Now, Bad Wabbit is a post-apocalyptic dystopian world where basically humans have destroyed the planet, polluted it, nuclear wars, toxic waste, and over years and years and years, animals have evolved to be anthropomorphic and taken on some human traits, because there was a point where humans and them were side by side, but humans died off because they can't handle all the radiation and stuff. But he's a drunk. Basically, he doesn't want, he's a drunk who just wants to be left the hell alone. And he gets kind of caught up in a fight with Foxy Fox and her crew. And because he can fight and knuckle up really well, she thought he would make a good addition. So she shanghais him. She shanghais him and his friend Toxic Pig. And that kind of sets them on an adventure that, unbeknownst to him, is going to change himself and the world that he's in. So it's very much a redemption story, and rediscovering yourself, because he's got a very traumatic past, and we get to see a lot of it throughout the series, and we get to see the past of all the characters. I want everybody to be kind of like emotionally invested in these characters, not just have like this linear two-dimensional character, So it's been ranked number one multiple times. It's like I said, a lot of people said it could be definitely a good series, TV series or something. So I mean, it doesn't suck, is what I'm trying to say. It doesn't totally suck. But we got. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Right, keep going. Yeah.
Oh, I was gonna say, we got multiple covers in the add-on section. I've got some really good artists that worked on these. We got some cool merch. That's just a few of the things we have: the hoodies and shirts. We got Gold Doubloon, that's from the Fox, because she's a pirate. And so.
Right. So I mean, you're running 1 through 4 right now. How many? You said it's ongoing, but how many issues do you see the first arc going?
Well, the first arc is we're gonna be ending that around book 5. We're gonna have because this is like a 2021 issue story overall. But we're gonna do a trade at book 5. Put a hardcover on it, and you're gonna get books 1 through 5, and then from there we're gonna keep going. But yeah, I mean, I have a definitive end for it, so it's not going to be like this forever ever going thing. But like I said, we're going to try and do spinoffs and stuff like that. There's a bunch of characters worth exploring.
All right, cool. So, I mean, how long have you been working with your artists?
I've been working with him since the beginning. His name is Tommy Guns. He is actually from China. He's an animator by trade. That's what he does, is animation, and he does some amazing animation. And he already agreed that if we could complete the entire series, get all 21 issues published, that he would love to do the series, the animated series, and he would do it himself. So that would be kind of cool to have a series animated by the guy that actually draws the inside of the comic book. But again, you know, money. So I think that's every indie creator's bane.
Yeah.
You know, so but we're halfway funded with 18 days to go, and we were almost halfway funded on the first 6 days. So it's been trickling in, but you know, I have a good feeling about it. I think it's going to work, and we'll get it out to everybody. I got a deal with somebody. They already said they wanted to carry it in their store if this funds. That would make it 5 stores right now. So it's crucial. We're just going to hit it hard and get it funded, man.
You just got to keep plugging at it. I mean, listen, you got a little hustling to do, but you know, that's what you're here for. You know, hustle.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So everybody, go check it out. Go back, Bad Wabbit. So you got
I promise you won't be disappointed.
There you go. Nice. Very nice. I like it.
Oh, and if you guys didn't see in the private chat, I did put a link for everybody on the panel to go get the first 2 digital copies for free. So you guys just go check it out. You can download it, check it out, see if you like it. And if you do like it, yeah, back the Wabbit.
Back the rabbit. But right now, before backing the rabbit, we got the Atlantean. Randy,
Yeah.
you want me to play that video?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Sums up everything real good.
In the time before Atlantis sank, when the lands of this world were savage and untamed, one man would claim his destiny, seizing his place as a king. After defending his throne and learning the devastating truth of the Serpent Kingdom and its deadly cults, King Kull and his right hand ruled the Spear Slayer, make a solemn vow to hunt down and destroy the hidden empire of these serpent demons. These are the tales of those journeys. This is the Atlantean. Tales inspired by the brilliance of Robert E. Howard, featuring his first barbarian characters as introduced in the pages of his classic tale, The Shadow Kingdom. Each volume contains beautifully painted covers and around 50 pages of original black and white art and story, featuring classic sword and sorcery adventures you don't want to miss. Join us on these epic adventures. Sign up now for news with the email list at russleach.com. Bring your axe and prepare for battle.
Nice.
Bring your axe.
Bring your ass. All right. So, Randy, talk us through it.
Sword and Sorcery. This is based off The Shadow Kingdom by Robert E. Howard. The story, The Shadow Kingdom, is in public domain, and had the pleasure of breaking that down into comic pages. That Russ, I run a podcast twice a week that Russ Leach is on, and he was mentioning to me that he wanted to draw a barbarian story. I says, well, why don't you take one of the Howard stories? There's bound to be one in public domain, and just adapt that. And he went, why don't you find me a story, break it down, and I'll draw it. And I said, okay. So we ran with The Shadow Kingdom because it was really the one of the only few stories of Howard that was really in public domain. It's the first Kull story, just as he becomes king of Valusia, finds out that his kingdom's being overrun by a race of shape-shifting lizard people. Has to wrap his head around all of that and be king at the same time. Well, we had so much fun doing that book that Russ wanted to continue it. Settled on the name The Atlantean in order to avoid any kind of trademark entanglements. and we're continuing the Cull and Brule from the Shadow Kingdom, and the other characters created there, and the characters that are in Howard's public domain stories, and we're taking them and continuing their adventures onward. It's almost like a on the road series, as Cull has found out that his world is infested by these snake demons. He's going to go track them all down because they tried to take his throne from him to start with, and he feels that they just all need to be eradicated, and Brule's traveling with him. So
God
it's
damn lizard people.
Yep, exactly right. And that's really this story is amazing. The more I research the story and Howard and Howard's relationship with this particular story, he literally defined the sword and sorcery genre off of this tale. This is recognized as the first published sword and sorcery story in America that starts that entire genre off. So it was a great jumping point off for us. It was a little, not to say a little, but it was very intimidating trying to come off of a Howard story with an original story that was Atlantean one. But I had a little help from Charles Santino, who had a plot idea that he pitched my way for another story involving young Cull, which really sparked the story that was in Atlantean 2 in this current campaign. And I'm really happy with the way this turned out. It's very pulpy, moves real fast. There's a lot of action. There's a lot going on and a lot of story in it as well. And we're going to keep the pace up now and just keep going. Russ wants to do about 3 books a year and just keep continuing it because he's having so much fun. And I'm having a lot of fun putting everything together for him. And like I said earlier, I had no idea I'd be writing sword and sorcery, but there it is, and it's been just a learning experience. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, cool.
And nice. Russ's artwork just keeps getting better and better as he gets into it.
I was gonna say Russ is good to begin with, but yeah, like every time I see one of his new pages from here, it's
looking awesome.
Just constantly stunned. Yeah, and I'm not just saying that because I wrote it, but Russ is just getting better and better all the time. He's a big fan of those old Savage Sword of Conan books. So the books in black and white with gray tones. It's set in a magazine format with a square binding. And we're just going to keep doing, album after album until folks don't want to read them anymore. But there's so much more going on off of this. I've got issue 3 completely plotted out. Issue 4 is completely plotted. But not totally scripted. I know exactly what's going to happen in the story, and I've got a good start for volume 5. So we're just going to keep going along with this. And with this campaign, we've got a couple of get-on tiers where you can get Atlantean 1 and 2, though you don't have to have them. They're all meant to be individually read stories that are just kind of strung together by common circumstances, and again, building off of the Shadow Kingdom. And then farther down, you can get a fantastic full-color hardback version of the Shadow Kingdom as well as Atlantean 1 and 2 at a really good price. So each book, it comes with a print. There are original sketches offered from Russ. There's original artwork because Russ does the inking on this book completely physically. And like I said, it's just amazing. So stunned and I feel real lucky to be on this project, and just ecstatic over the way that it's turning out.
All right, cool. Listen, it looks, I back all these, so I like them.
If you liked 1, you're going to love 2.
Yeah.
It's just, I think 2 is such a huge step up in the writing and pacing, finally figuring out what we're supposed to be doing and just kicking it right off. So 1's really good too. It's a real good yarn, but 2 just really, really kicks out the walls.
Right,
and then
cool.
3 is going to do even more than that. We're going to start building on top of what we've got now and bringing in characters that'll pop in and out of the different stories. And, who knows where it'll go. Now, right now we've got Red Dragon out of Brazil, translating it into Portuguese. And I believe it's Centurion Publications out of Denmark that is translating it into Danish.
Oh, nice.
For us as well.
Sure, just stabby.
Yep, exactly. Russ's requirement for number 2 was he wanted to draw breasts and blood. And then I got that little plot. There's a young Cull story intermixed into number 2 that fit in so well. It really used it as the main plot device for the entire issue, and we build off of that in Shadow Kingdom, and really good. Yeah, the little young Cull stories from Charles really kicked off the issue real well.
Cool. Well, you got 105 backers. You got 12 days left.
Yep.
You're on Fund My Comics, so everybody go check it out.
Please.
I mean,
do.
it looks awesome, man. You know, you guys always knock it out the park. So
working real hard on it. A lot of it's Russ. Well, the majority of it's Russ. I blame Russ for all of it, actually.
Right.
I've done an editorial where I say it's all Russ's fault. He dragged me into this, and look at how great it's going. So,
all right, cool.
Really proud of it.
So, James, do you want me to play this video?
I enjoy watching it.
All right, cool. Very nice. So, James, how angry is your brain?
I'm sorry?
So, how angry is your brain?
Very.
Very-
very, very angry. That's a nickname from childhood. Yeah. The Ballad of Nod is a story about a little girl and her teddy bear at the basic core of it. But the little girl is suffering loss. She has lost her dad to cancer, and all that sadness, all that regret, and all of that fear and pain is basically bringing nightmares in from the dream world into her real world. And every night that teddy bear Patches, he faces them and he fights them back into the darkness so that she never even knows. Until one night, the biggest, baddest boogeyman in the mall comes into their world and drags him all the way back into Nod. And then Faye has to make the decision to either stay where it's safe or face the nightmares on their terms to get back the person that she loves and stop the loss from reoccurring.
All right, cool. Now, is this the first issue?
This is the first issue. The story is scripted for 6.
Okay.
But I wanted to let it out as single issues to make sure that I had the backing and the a base. I wanted to know that people wanted to see this story. And that's kind of one way you make sure is you get it out there, show it to people, and see who's willing to, spend their time and pay their hard-earned coin for it.
All right, very nice. Now, how long have you been developing this? Because I know you're the artist and writer. So, how long have you been working on it?
Let's see here. Camille, Faye is based on my daughter, and she's about to turn 18. And when she was 3 or so, I had gotten over cancer and I was going back to work and dealing with things. And at the same time, I had this beautiful toddler and she was asking me questions. She wanted to know why I was so sad. I had just lost my grandfather, my mother, my other grandfather, and then finally I lost my father. And that was back when she was 3, so 15 years ago. And it turned into, I didn't know how to explain it to her. I didn't know how to cope with my feelings. I didn't know how to explain what I was going through, much less I barely knew how to be a father. My parents sucked. They didn't teach me crap. And so while I'm trying to figure all that out and not screw my kid up, that's kind of where I started telling my kids these bedtime stories that were based on their grandfather's childhood, my childhood, and eventually it turned into these stories about Faye going into Nod and fighting nightmares with her teddy bear. Patches, the teddy bear in the comic, is based on Camille's teddy bear. She has a teddy bear named Patches.
Is he like this one, all beat up and tore up? Yep. Nice.
Cool.
The story I tell in the book is literally how we found Patches. My wife was having surgery in this hospital, and the hospital had multiple gift shops, and one of them was closing down. And they'd had a bear on their shelf for years, and he just never sold. And I went in there and I bought the bear. It comforted my wife, when she got out of surgery. Camille wasn't even born yet. And then I had to take her to her sister's house to help her recover while I went back to work. The bear got put on a shelf in her den and sat there for about 6 years.
Wow.
And then Camille, when she was just about 3, found this bear sitting on a shelf in this den by herself, climbed up this radio cabinet and decided this was her bear. And then tugged him around with him everywhere. So he's still in her bedroom right now.
Awesome.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah, man, this is pretty awesome, man. All right, so you got 57 back, 82% there. Yeah, 6 days ago. I don't think you're gonna have much of an issue getting there. A little bit of hustling.
Hope not.
No, I think
we've had a lot over the last 4 days. We've had about 5 backers show up. A couple of them have gotten 1 or 2 of the bigger packages. Like one of the rewards we did is we're making pajamas that look like patches.
Wow, that's cool.
Nice.
I have a heat press and stuff, so we're going to be using transfers and things like that to dolly up some pajamas and the things like that. There's somebody's already taken the one where I was going to draw somebody into the story, where they're going to get their own 4-page mini story. So
cool.
Yeah, there's a couple of cool things I'm really proud of, but I tried to make sure I kept everything under what I could control, and use as little third party to do anything as possible, so that nothing got slowed down or.
Yeah, that's the best way.
Yeah.
I had to learn my lesson on that on my first Kickstarter. I kind of slowed everything down pretty hard. So I'm super excited we got a project we love, dude. I worked so hard on that. JD, you've seen my other campaigns, man. I always try, and I never get it with Damage. Damage never gets projects we love. I think it's because the characters are so sarcastic and so they're such jerks to each other that I don't know. But I tried really hard to make sure I covered all my bases and brought in some beautiful artwork, some really good rewards, and I'm really proud that we got that reward stamp.
Yeah. I mean, listen, how they pick it, I don't know. Because I'll get it on some Oswalds. Some Oswalds I get it. Then they'll skip me for 2 or 3, and then I'll get for 4 in a row. And then I'll get skipped.
Wildly arbitrary. We got it one time, of all things, we got it on our Ursa Minor project. I was like, what? Right. Why are you picking this of all the things we've released? How is this the one? It's so bizarre.
Yeah, it is. But
I don't know much about those rewards. Do they add them onto your thing with themselves, or they send you an email saying you got picked, or what?
Yeah,
no. I never got the email.
Yeah, we got an email saying, "Hey,
I
you're a project that we love," and then it just put up all the graphics.
Yeah.
Damn it.
however they want to display that.
Mhm.
I wish
Yeah.
I found that. I looked all over. I actually noticed halfway through the campaign that I had the little heart on the bottom. I was like,
Mhm.
oh my god, I did it.
Yeah, right there. All right, very nice. I mean, it's looking awesome, man. I mean, it's really, really good.
It is. I'm really
Good
proud
job.
of the work that's been done. Kira has been a great help writing it, and I don't know. I'm really proud of the work. A lot of the feedback I've gotten has been like a lot of people have connected with it emotionally, which is, as a storyteller, that's probably what you really, really want to go for. Is you want a reaction, you want an emotion attached to it, you want somebody not just to say, oh, I thought it looked pretty cool, or hey, having a giant kaiju fight with a teddy bear, that was great, just whatever about the moment. You want them to say more than that. You want them to say, oh, that this thing touched me, this reminds me of my dad, this makes me wish my mom was still alive, or I used to have a teddy bear just like this, or I don't know. I wanted to make sure I was able to touch people on an emotional level in that story, and I think it accomplished what I set out.
All right, cool. I got this other campaign from the Slacker. I mean, this guy.
Slacker. Slacker.
Rob, do you want to say the video?
Yeah, it does all the talking for me.
Love stories about anti-heroes and supernatural beings like werewolves, vampires, demons, witches, zombies, and more? Then Nightwolf is the comic book series for you. Nightwolf's unique take on theology and mythology encompasses elements of horror, magic, fantasy in a modern setting. Hi, I'm Robert Malteri, the creator and writer of Nightwolf, as well as the founder of Lone Wolf Comics. It's been my dream since I was a kid struggling with attention deficit disorder and dyslexia to be a comic book creator because comics have helped me learn to overcome my disability. Born into an outcast breed of werewolves known as the Monokai, 18-year-old Rodney Marcelli is reluctantly thrown into an ancient war between good and evil in today's world where the line has been blurred. With the help of Snowpaw, the pureblood Monokai, Rodney must learn to master his newly found lycanthropy and mysterious kinetic energy power that only he possesses. Rodney must fight the Dark Covenant in order to avenge his friends and family and to save the girl he loves from the master vampire, Lord Malice. Rodney Marcelli is Nightwolf. In April of 2016, I launched a failed Kickstarter campaign for Nightwolf issues 1 through 3. I played the game on hard, setting a $20,000 goal. However, I did manage to raise over $5,000, but Kickstarter is an all-or-nothing platform. I didn't let that failed launch stop me, so I decided to raise the money on my own by doing freelance web design jobs to pay the artists. After self-publishing Nightwolf issues 1 and 2, I came back to Kickstarter in October 2019. Since then, I've successfully overfunded 16 campaigns for Nightwolf issues 3 through 9, both the Nightwolf volumes 1 and 2 trade paperbacks, the first 3 issues of my series Snowpaw, the Wolfpack Pups Halloween Kids board book, and 3 Wolfpack Pup plush toys. That's all thanks to my amazing backers that I refer to as my Wolfpack. Currently, I have written 12 issues of Nightwolf and have published the first 9 issues in print and digital formats. Now I stand ready to publish Nightwolf issue 10, and that's why I've come back to pay for the printing and the rewards that you will receive for backing this project. I'm extremely grateful for where I am now as a self-publisher and continuing to serialize Nightwolf for you to enjoy. Again, thank you for taking this creative journey with me. I appreciate it so much. So what are you waiting for? Join the Wolfpack today.
All right, cool. I call Rob a slacker because he's like on every podcast and show, and he's all over the place, and
I think I've been slacking more on like the live shows the last couple campaigns.
Okay, so what does he only do 20 instead of 30?
I think I've done more this time than I ever have, but I still, every time I turn around, Rob's on something that when I show up, he's already there. Or like it's impressive, man. It's I'm not knocking it in any way, Rob. You've been able to turn out 5 figures on your books and do it consistently, man. You're doing well.
Thank you. Yeah, I eat, sleep, and breathe it. And I mean, I'm sure my wife is probably tired of me like talking about it all the time. She's like, enough of your book. Talk about me.
Yeah. So, Rob, walk us through it. What do we got here, man?
Yeah, so this is issue 10. I mean, we're getting really close to the end of this first story arc. I mean, you know, I'm very thankful to be able to continue doing this long, and you know, as we were talking about earlier, and you know, each campaign we show previews from each issue. That way, people can say, you know, whether they like the art in the book or not. We're not just showing the new stuff because, you know, we want, you know, people to feel like they can catch up at any time, you know, because we are, you know, they're able to catch up on everything. They can get all 10 issues, or they can get the 2 trades that collect, you know, 1 through 4 and then 5 through 8. And then they can get 9 and 10 together or whatever. You know, we're just trying to, we're going to keep the current wolf pack happy, and we're going to bring more pack members in and keep, you know, showing, you know, everybody's welcome who enjoys basically supernatural, urban, fantasy, werewolf, vampire, slobber knocker, you know, horror, battle, whatever, you know. It's kind of like a mixed genre, if you will. It just has
I like that term, urban fantasy slobber knocker. I dig that, dude, because I think that's kind of a really good way to sum up Nightwolf, because it's got that action thing that you feel from like Thundercats and He-Man, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like me growing up in the 80s, like that, you know, that's why he has a sword, because every basically character that I ever loved as in a cartoon or something had a big ass sword.
I hear the words, I have the power, and instantaneously I am a 6-year-old. And I get it. But that I like using that term there, because I've always wondered, it's kind of hard. When I first saw Nightwolf, I was like, oh man, this guy must play like a lot of White Wolf when he was a teenager.
That's the thing. I've only ever played 1 round of Werewolf the Apocalypse, because one, I'd never really, the people that I played with, they already had their group, right? So I really wasn't welcome. So one of the guys and I like just kind of played for fun, right? So I never got invited into it. But I did have some of the books, because I really did. I love, like, after he showed me the book and the artwork in the book, I was like, because I was even the way that it came about was like I was telling him about my story, because like I originally started writing this when I was a junior in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like telling him how I want my werewolves, you know, and this and that. He's like, dude, have you ever played Werewolf the Apocalypse? I'm like, I've never heard of it. He's like, you need to check this out. And I saw it. I was like, oh my God, this is exactly how, like, the aesthetic that I'm looking for.
Yeah. But you've taken it in a little bit different way, though.
Oh, of course. I can't just rip off for it.
Well, that's what I mean. I want to make sure everybody understands that. Like, that's that part where the slobber knocker turns in, right? Like,
oh yeah.
This is a heroic action. This is he has the Thundercat sword. He has a purpose that's more than just like, look, I love those games. I loved them when I played them. I loved watching other people play them, but they were very nihilistic. They didn't have a purpose. And
well, there was a purpose, but it was mostly like saving the earth from like these demon toxic things, essentially.
Yeah, but in the cycle, it would just repeat itself.
Yeah.
This is more of, you know, you have a hero, you have a point, you have a story, you're going through it. You've got other characters branching off and doing other things. This feels like this feels like, you know, you like Thundercats, you're watching that. Oh, by the way, here's Silverhawks. Oh, by the way, here's it feels like that when you're reading Nightwolf and you see all your other shoot off books and stuff, and the art is always energetic. That's one of the things I love about your books, is there's always energy going on.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, cool.
So I didn't even have to talk much. James did it all for me.
James did it for you. Good endorsement. Very nice. But yeah, but I mean, you know, Rob, you have the endless scroll.
I have a lot of stuff. What can I say?
You have a lot of stuff. I mean, yeah, I'm like, oh, wait.
You do have a lot of crap, dude.
Yeah. You know, it's good though. I mean, you know, I know you do a lot of shows, so
yeah.
I'm sure it does nice to fill up the table.
Well, that's what's funny about this too, because like this is a shorter campaign than I'm usually running. So this was like 15, 16 days. Typically I do like 22, 23. So I'm actually cutting it a week shorter, because the week that it would have ended, I'm gonna be going to DC for AwesomeCon, and So I'll be in the car like Thursday night, and it ends like the next day at noon, and I'm like, well, I got to bump it back a week. I can't, or and I didn't want to go a whole another week.
Gotcha.
So I was like, I'm going to experiment with the half a month campaign and see how that goes for me.
I like doing them in that 2 week, 3 week kind of window. 4 weeks always feels a little tough to get through.
Yeah, like the Dead Zone, especially like lately, I feel like the Dead Zone's gotten really, really like
Dead.
tough. Dead. Yeah, I don't want to say dead because it's not completely dead.
Yeah,
but it's still like, but like you could see like the first 2 days you have your spike, right, and then you have like these little like little plateaus, and then at the end it comes back up again. So like I thought, okay, well maybe if I just cut that out a little bit more, because this is the opportunity to actually do that, we'll see what happens. I don't know. Part of me is like, maybe I should have let it go another week. We'll see.
Yeah. Listen, mate, you're doing great. You already met your goal. You got another 4 days left. So, I everybody pile on. Go get some wolf books. Very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's looking good. All right, real quick. I'm going to throw up my Dreamweavers. All right, so we're down to 13 days. We're really funded. About 53.
Dreamweaver.
What's funny is I really like that song, but no. I have a lot of covers here, a lot of various different artists, a lot of sexy covers. I have the 2 original covers, which were done by the original artist. His name is Matt Lunsford. This is a book I did back in 92. It was like one of the first books I had ever done. And it was 48 pages. It's remastered, recolored, relettered, and we did the whole thing. And I just wanted to re-release it. I want to finish it. We only got to issue 3 in the initial run. So Matt and I have gotten back together, and we're going to finish all 6 issues. So the 3 issues are done. This is the first issue. It's in color. It's based around these are 3 of the mystics or the Dreamweavers. And what it is they're 4 kids who like to play role-playing games, and these are their role-playing game characters. Whenever they go to bed, these characters come out and they inhabit their bodies. What they don't know is that these bodies are actually people from other dimensions. There's another group that actually hunts demons, and that's one of the issues they're having. On their world, there was a huge cosmic battle between some entities, and they ended up shredding the walls between realities. So their demons starting to seep through. And the Dreamweavers are there, and they're trying to stop these demons from entering their reality. So there you go. And it's 48 pages. It's cover to cover, 48 pages. And
that's a lot of pages.
Yeah. We were crazy. So this has another 13 days. So please jump on, buy a book. Matt would appreciate it. I would appreciate it. Thank you so much. You help us out.
You're the only one here that doesn't have their goddamn title in their image.
Oh, yeah.
Son of a bitch.
What? Sometimes I do it. Sometimes I don't. All right.
I mean, he doesn't even have.
We've had this talk so many times, JD.
I know.
Branding.
I know.
All right, so that's for issue 1, right? So you're can do. You said you're up to 3, so you're gonna release 2 and 3 consecutively after that, and then get to 4, like have 4 done. After.
Well, you got. Well, see, the thing is, this is actually a catch-up campaign because I had already released this like a few months ago.
Oh, right.
So this is a catch-up campaign, and then after that, issue 2 will come out, and then we'll do a catch-up campaign for that, and then we'll do issue 3 catch campaign, and so on.
It's just like I'm just gonna keep throwing them out there until people stop paying me.
Well, that's the goal, right? Try to make it consistent. And try to get them out there.
And then this is the Oswald Chronicles. This I'm launching tomorrow.
Ooh.
So this is what my eyes see, I cannot tell. This is a story where Oswald, you see this character right here in the dress. That is his long-lost wife. And this is the story of when he actually first fell in love with her. Okay, so he explains the story, how this happened and all this crazy stuff, and how he sees her and how he's stunned because she died a long time ago in Dream, because he was an emperor in Dream and he spent about 80 years of his life in Dream, but that was only 2 weeks in reality. He was in a self-induced coma. But him seeing his wife like triggers a lot of old memories in him, and it brings him back to a time when he was an emperor and a battle mage and all these other things. And I'm finally getting to a point in the story where I'm starting to tell this story. And this story leads. This is a part of the Star Tremor story. This is 5 separate stories. This is the first story, and when that leads, that's going to set off where I end the second arc and I move into the third and final arc. So I'm kind of excited. So
That's
Why is there no Oswald and Ego Raven crossover?
we did one.
Did you?
Yeah. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. So we did. We did I think it was a 16-page story that I wrote and Daphne illustrated, and it's just like a little thing. We I think I have a trade paperback coming out that's in full colors. My Time with Clive. It's in there, and it's like an extra special thing. So
Sweet.
But you didn't do in a full-on release though. Like you two could come. Like you always talk about how your audiences don't always cross over, right? Even though like what Tom is saying is you should have a Kickstarter,
just for the book
crossover.
Yeah, gravy. There's a lot of books, a lot of crossovers. Like I think I'm gonna try to get to at least 8 campaigns for Oswald this year. And that's Dreamweaver Press, and then through Angel Wing, where Dreamweaver's Magi's Grace comes out, I'm hoping to do about 4 to 5 campaigns through that.
And if I can get 4 done, I'm gonna think myself as like lucky as hell. Most I've ever done is 2, and participated in like a bunch of anthologies. So I wasn't alone, but that's a lot. I'm always impressed by how many some of you guys get done.
And in between campaigns, I might be launching some IGGs too. So we'll see. Because I don't have who needs time? Right?
What is time?
Yeah. Exactly. Who needs sleep?
If I sit there and I'm not doing something's wrong because I need to distract myself. I need to do stuff.
Exactly. Yep. Tom,
why would you use IGG when you know it's going to fail, and you have options like Fund My Comic instead?
Well, no, that's a possibility, but I run stuff on IGG, and I actually have a very tiny customer base over there.
I don't mean fail like abjectly fail, but like I feel like it's the last place any of us need to worry about. Right. And I think Fund My Comic, if anything is going to have a little traction and an actual audience sitting there like looking around at stuff, it's probably that.
All right. Okay. You talked me into it.
Check it out, folks. FundMyComic.com. Yeah. Atlantean's right there on the front page.
Exactly. Luke's a cool dude, So, Tom, your question.
I just asked it. Why are you using Indiegogo? Stop it.
It's not a question.
Stop it.
It's not a question. All right.
It's a question of the
we already said we would allow you to at least ask one question, so we're allowing you. So go for it.
As I've said before, I have all the answers you need. I have no question.
Okay. All right. You know what? I got a question for you guys. This is a process question. This is one I don't really use these types of questions because sometimes they get deep into the weeds in this, but fuck it, let's get deep into the weeds. How do you establish a strong antagonist in your stories? Give one example. So how do you James, you're up.
I use nowadays I use the hero's journey. I've got like a little template where it's all cartoony and I follow it all the way around. And after I get the concept of the script, I kind of put it in there and move things around until I fit the format, so that it catches little things that I missed. Things like helping characters that are a part of the story, or they have to face something and have consequences for their actions, and all of those things to help make a more three-dimensional protagonist.
Okay. Fair enough. Anthony, what are your thoughts?
I just wing it, man. That's
fair.
No, I like to make my, like, you know, I said earlier, I like to make my characters very relatable and somebody you can emotionally attach yourself to, you know. So I don't know, you know, the hero's journey. My hero isn't really a hero, so it's more like the drunken bum's journey, I guess. So you know, yeah, you know, so he's just kind of like he's got to pull himself out of that hole that we find him in at the beginning of the story. And I've been in that hole. I you know, I used to drink heavily, like, you know, and so I know what it's like to be drunk and burnt out and passing out and waking up in places you didn't even know you were supposed to be. And, you know, I've been there. So it's not hard for me. It's not a stretch for me to figure out that journey of his character. And where, because I'm, you know, I've changed 180 degrees from what I used to be like. So I'm planning on hoping that he can do the same, but we'll see, I guess.
All right. Yeah, that's fair. Randy, what do you think?
I just have him meet somebody.
Mm-hmm.
No, you show the guys the antagonist is bad or evil and work your way out from there. That's the easiest thing to do. You know, just like, for example, War of the Worlds, I just had them start dropping cylinders and everybody knew who they were because they dropped them 100 years before that. So, you know, that really the main antagonist in War of the Worlds isn't necessarily even the Martians. The Martians are a force of nature. The true antagonists are the people working politics with the other people inside of the communities who let them get out and make tripods and start taking over the world. But there's all sorts of ways. The best thing to do is just study writing and basic story structure. It's the best thing I could recommend for anybody to do. Writer's Digest. There's great books out there on screenwriting. There's and story building. Take a creative writing course in college, and you know, learn your story structure. That's the big thing.
Agreed.
Cool. Tom, what are your thoughts?
Well, I feel like we're in this weird period of time in storytelling where every fucking villain has to be sympathetic. It drives me absolutely batshit. I mean, yes, obviously every villain has a reason that they became a villain. Like, it's very rare that someone is just born, hey, I'm a fucking asshole, and that's just their life, right? They're just a dick forever. So obviously, and there's a lot of people that were complaining like about Wicked, right? This movie and the book, like, well, no, the Wicked Witch is just wicked. Well, we're going to show you why she became wicked, and this is sort of the path. They did it with Maleficent, but at some point, we kind of just need assholes, right? And I think that is. It sounds like it's easy to do, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your readers are going to be intrigued by the character just because he or she is just, you know, hey, I'm just a guy who's going to fuck stuff up. That's a guy that you can do short-term storytelling with, but you need something larger, and that sort of is just storytelling, story building, escalation of where did it start, where is it going, what's the goal of the. You know, what's the goal of the bad guy? What's the goal of the good guy? How do they butt heads? Or how does the bad guy act like the good guy, but then at the end we realize he's been, you know, doing it for himself, or whatever. So what's interesting is like one of the bad guys in Critter is Paradox. And people just latched onto that guy. Like, he never really did anything abjectly bad. But as the story went along, we just saw little bricks in his wall. Like, oh, that what? Huh? What? Huh? Like, and then suddenly people realize, like, oh, this guy is here for himself, and he's not just here to, you know, do what else is going on. And I think people like the bricks in the wall. They like to see the additions to character, what good guys or bad guys. They just like to see the additions of, you know, progression. And I think that's one of the advantages to long form storytelling versus short stories is that you can really layer the bricks over a period of time and turn these guys into really good or really bad, or crisscross them, to kind of throw people off depending on how you want to tell your story. So I don't think there's really a way specifically to be like, I'm going to make this bad guy. I mean, look at Boba Fett, right? Boba Fett doesn't do shit ever except fly into the side of a ship and die. But people love Boba Fett, right? Like this, all the guy did was stand in the background and then get eaten by a monster. People love Boba Fett. So a lot of it is design, right? Boba Fett looks great. Like his design is great. He was mysterious because they didn't tell us anything about him. And so he kind of grabbed imagination by not giving us anything other than just, holy shit, that guy looks really cool.
Some villains are really good because we don't know who they are, so our mind fills in the gaps.
That's right.
One of the problems about the prequels is finding out about who Darth Vader was never going to compare to all the scarier versions of him that all of us had in our head for 2 decades. And
I honestly think it kind of ruined his character in a way because we liked him the way he was. We didn't need to know, like we had enough when Obi-Wan said, "Oh, your father was a Jedi," and that was enough for me.
Well, the actor who played him was I just couldn't believe.
Well, but see, the story of Anakin is the same thing as the story of the Witch of the West. Why did the Witch of the West become the Wicked Witch of the West? Why did Anakin Skywalker become Darth Vader? There's reasons for all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not the reason needs to be told is up to whoever's writing the story, of course. But the reasons are there, good, bad, or indifferent. And it's just a matter of, again, will the readership, in the context of like a Vader or a Witch of the West, you're almost sort of arbitrarily adding things to the story. Like, we're going to tell you now what happened. And the fans will either react good or bad to that. And some of that is based on how you create the story, like what information you give them. Do they accept it? Do they reject it? And other times it's just, we don't want to know. We just want the bad guy to be the bad guy. And that's a very personal thing. Different watchers and readers will want different things out of all of that. So,
so is Tom, what you're saying, that you make the good guys by making the bad guys bad?
Yeah.
Sometimes, like Luke wasn't really a good guy. He was just sitting on Tatooine until he was forced to become the good guy. And even in that context, he was still like, I don't know if I should go because my uncle and the blue milk, and then, but he was eventually, they forced him because they killed aunt and uncle. And he was like, well, shit, now clearly I have to go. So sometimes the good guys need a kick in the ass to do what they are supposed to do, need to do whatever.
Like that rabbit.
Where other times they're completely in control. They're just like, I'm making the decision to go.
It's part of the Hero of 10,000 Faces is to deal with the reluctant hero and the motivating action that pulls the person beyond their reluctance.
Yeah. All right, cool. Rob, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I agree wholeheartely with Tom. Like, it's not, you shouldn't just have one type of antagonist, and it shouldn't just be the emotional connection. It should be like you have the villains who have the reason, and then you have the ones who just want to burn the world down, right? I mean, look at the Joker, for example. I mean, he's charismatic, funny, he's homicidal. It depends on also who wrote him at the time, but most of the times people love him as a villain, and he's it's Batman's foil to they kind of play off each other rather well. So you kind of have to have that villain, no matter what direction or how you create them, have to be able to play off of the hero rather well, or even like in cases like you don't even have to have the villain actually interact with the hero. For the most part, like you just have to have the reasons why you love to hate.
Luke and Vader don't even do anything until the Death Star trench.
Right. Exactly. So like, for example, like with Nightwolf, like him and, Lord Malice don't actually meet until the very end of, the first story arc, but he knows, as the story progresses, he knows of him, and, the whole push the hero push, if you will. And I kind of see him as more of an anti-hero because he's doing it for selfish reasons. He's going basically like, he's kind of going for revenge. His parents were crucified in his living room, and he's going to save his girlfriend from the vampire who thinks that, she's a reincarnation of his dead lover. So it's, again, he's not exactly going for the, I'm going to go be a hero and kill this vampire, like, and half the time, like he's like when given the chance, like he left in, issue 9, he left Snowpaw fighting Blackclaw to the death, didn't even think about it, just was like, oh, I smell, the perfume of my girlfriend, I'm gonna go off and find her, So again, I don't consider him necessarily a hero, just a teenager who's thinking with the wrong head, right? So that's that to me. So like the villain, obviously he has his motive, you are like kind of get what he's doing, but to me he's not even like the villain that's like really likable. Like my favorite villains are like, for example, Blackclaw. Like you don't know anything about him except for he's very charismatic and he just wants to fuck with you, right? So he like left Nightwolf with a silver cut across his eye and his side, just toying with him, and then took off. And then like he's the entire time that he's fighting with Snowpaw is basically he's antagonizing her the whole time. So I kind of set it up where he's the villain that you like just because he's funny, he's charismatic, and you don't know shit about him. And then the Twin Witches, same kind of a situation. Like they, they're that kind of like, they're mysterious. You don't really know where they came from, what they're doing, but they have different personalities that you can like, just enjoy. So again, it's just, you're setting up, the best way to set up the villains is doing it differently, not just having the same formula, but also how it plays with the story. Because if you have it where like you have this specific type of villain, it doesn't mesh with the story, then it, nobody's going to want to read it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. And like Invincible, right? Invincible has your primary bad guys, but along the way, you also get these ridiculous guys like the Lizard League and, the Elephant and just fun stuff that you can do these like one-off, hero moments with. And then you've got the larger, sort of background overarching problems that are, the world ending events.
Yeah. The Vegemite apocalypse.
Yeah. I mean, for myself, when it comes down to like something like Oswald, right? It's a series of stories. So he experiences a lot of different villains, a lot of different antagonists, throughout the series. I mean, there's a ton of them, right? Every 4 or 5 issues, I'm writing a different story. So there's a different one, right? And I try to always do something a little different. Sometimes, it's a demon, right? So you just figure it's inherently evil, right? Sometimes it's an outer being that just, we don't really even know what it is. So it's just doing its thing. In something like Tall Tales, where I have nations clashing, I have my protagonists and then I have my antagonists. But the thing is that the way I write the story is when you see the antagonists, they're just fighting for their people, right? So it's who's on the wrong side here. So it just depends on which side
on your view, yeah.
It depends, right, on which side of the fence you're on. It says, I'm fighting for my people, you're fighting for your people. Maybe my leaders pushed this war, but I'm doing my job, right, in this war, right?
It's like butter battle book all over again.
So I mean, it goes down like that. And Oswald, I have some characters where I wrote I wrote a one shot where Baba Yaga, who I'm pretty sure everybody's familiar with, the old Russian witch, she creates a minor evil, right? And she sets it loose, right? For no other reason than just to create chaos, right? And that's the only reason she did it for, and this entity finds Oswald and wants him to remove the demon that this witch put inside of him, this curse. And Oswald looks at him and he's like, I don't know if you're really cursed. Did she really curse you? Did she just release your true nature? Right? So they're questions, deeper questions. You can always explore within these characters. So yeah, so it's funky stuff. Just gotta try to enjoy yourself.
I mean, coming up with a really good villain is sometimes hard, depending on, and like me, one of my favorite villains of all time that I've actually planning on modeling one of the Pangolin Emperor after is Frieza from Dragon Ball, because he was like this well-spoken, and he was just creepy. You never knew what he was going to do. And I want somebody that, if you mess up playing the piano, he'd be like, I understand, it's difficult, and then breaks his neck. It's like you never know what's going to happen.
He's got that aristocratic, I'm a prick.
Yeah,
vibe,
exactly.
Like Captain Hook shooting his own pirate, or
he has no qualms about shooting his own guy. So,
classic Dr. Doom,
power over morality.
Yeah, those guys have always been my favorite kind. It's just you never know.
All right, Rob, you got another one?
Another question?
Yeah.
Let's see. I did have. I had one kind of similar to the other one. I don't know if I should ask it though.
All right. I mean, I got a question here if you want.
Well, I mean, all right. All right. Let's. I'll ask it because it's kind of the same vein, but not. So, all right. You know how like there's those musical artists out there who they have their comic book. You had Kiss had a comic book, and other. Yeah. So like, if you had the ability to work with a musical artist to write like either a some kind of biography or a crazy ass story that they just want to tell, who would it be and why?
All right. Well, Anthony, we're back to you. Think fast.
I don't know. I listened to Rush,
I'm
and
sure
like
the story.
Yeah, I mean,
have you read Neil Peart's books about everything that happened to him after his kid died?
No.
Then there you go.
There you go. Well, then there's your answer. Yeah, I mean, I listen to Rush and all the old school rock and stuff, AC/DC and stuff like that. So I would probably team up with one of them and see if they can tell me some awesome stories from the road. Maybe not necessarily public knowledge, some crazy shit that happened behind the scenes.
All right. That's cool. Randy, what are you thinking?
I've got a bucket list of stuff that I've always wanted to do, and one of those things is to take the songs, some of the songs of Harry Chapin, and adapt them into sequential art, into comic book form, because I can see them. A couple of songs, especially, I can see them broken down already in my head. I just have to sit there and draw them out, and have other folks come in and interpret. He's a folk storyteller that was pretty important to the area. He used to pop in once or twice a year and do free concerts for the Michigan and Flint Voice, and he'd pop into an auditorium. The last time we went to see him was just like a month before he got killed, and it was just him and a guitar in front of a chair, and he sat there and sang stories, and a lot of his stories are incredibly visual. You might know Taxi or Cats in the Cradle, but he's got an entire catalog of incredible work that I think would be great and easily done visually, into comic book form. Other than that, I like folk tellers and storytellers that sing stories. So any of those folks, I'd just love to do an anthology book and break their already written song down into comic book pages. I think it'd be fun.
Nice. Interesting. James, what are your thoughts?
That's a loaded question. That's my first thought, because there are so many different great storytellers who are musicians, and that's why you see that come up so often. And I mean, you have Glenn Danzig. He's got tons of comics that he's worked with over the years. If I was going to choose somebody that maybe I felt this like kinship with, so that it would make it more fun and easier to do, I would probably want to do either. This is going to kind of sound a bit mainstream, but I would want to do like a Monster of the Week style story, and I would want to either do it with either probably like somebody like Johnny Cash, where the guy's got a million different stories in a million places he's been, and a million highs and lows and all kinds of stuff. And he's in the middle of already so many different crazy stories, whether it's him fighting with presidents or him, dealing with whatever's going on inside of his family or in his own life. Somebody who's got that kind of upbringing where they stood up in the dirt and figured out their path. That particular story, whether it's him or Robert Johnson or even Elvis Presley, all those different ones, there's all kinds of stories that are like missing unless you do like some massive deep dive where you get into the visceral parts of the storytelling. If you go into it deep enough, before everybody gets mainstream, they're pretty much freaking one version or another of punk rock, where they are living on like dimes and nickels and trying to tell stories and getting screwed over and finding a way to get through it. The story itself has got so much potential, and it's repeated in a lot of different places. The other one that I would probably do is, maybe it's because I'm a huge Metallica fan, but I already did a story called Damage Inc. once. I'm sure I would love to sit down with them and have them killing monsters. I would fucking love that.
I mean, they did it with Stranger Things, right? Eddie was playing the guitar in the middle of
exactly
the attack.
Dude,
exactly.
Yeah, that was epic.
All right, cool. Tom, what are your thoughts?
I have no connection to music in any capacity to where I'd be like, I want to work with them or use this or like zero, absolutely zero. I've seen too much. I've seen a lot of music stuff. I'm familiar with all the Kiss stuff. Like even McFarlane did like a Kiss Psycho Circus for a while, things like that.
Angel Medina.
Yeah. But it doesn't resonate for me at all. So I have, there's literally nothing that I could tell you that I'd be
I nominate
I
Tiny
want to
Tim
work
for
with
Tom.
that person to do this thing. All your stories are great. I love where you're coming from. All of that makes sense completely, 100%. But I think that's a really hyper focused thing that I simply don't have as far as a music sense goes to. I love music. There's musicians that I love, but I don't know all their backstories and all the I know comic book people's backstories and where they came from, and I watched those documentaries, but I was never VH1 behind the music. I was never that guy.
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be their backstory. I mean, they could like have a story based off of their music or something that if there's like
100%. And I've seen some of that stuff too. And when I've seen it, I'm just like, I don't care. Like none of this. I just don't care. The closest thing that we did in that context with music was when we did our first Goth Day book, and we introduced all of our kind of characters into this goth universe. We wanted music. Music was a key piece of the storytelling in that story. And so when I worked with CB Zane, I told him, I'm like, look, as we go through this, there are going to be points in the story where music is sort of like ambient and happening in the story, and I want to use musical notes as the design of the panels of the pages, so that it's not just like we're adding it like text or whatever. Like I want to actually create the panel to be musical notes, and that was a bitch to figure out how to do that. And he and I were back and forth trying to figure out how to make these things, and finally we got it, and I think it came out really, really cool. So we did kind of incorporate music through that storyline, which was awesome. And I think it was really fun to do, really, really creative. And he did a great job. But I think that'll be the closest thing that I'd try and touch on as far as that goes.
Cool. For me, and this one's probably like pretty obvious, probably somebody like Rob Zombie, something like Dragula or Living Dead Girl, I think when you listen to those songs, they give very specific images, and very weird, horrific, because he's directed movies, and if you ever seen any of his movies, you could tell, the sort of thing he's into. So
I keep hoping that DC would get smart one of these days and do a Phantom Stranger TV series and use Rob Zombie's song to kick it off. I think that would be incredible.
Yeah, but that's something that I'd be interested in, because that's the sort of horror that I could probably really get into. Like really deep, really dark, nasty. But yeah, so Rob, answer your own question. What do you got?
So I'm sad that, I mean, obviously Coheed and Cambria, they already did their own series, right? I mean, that's the whole thing, is that Claudio, when he wrote the lyrics and the songs, they basically tell his story, and he's tried several times, and I think he's landed with Boom. Has been his long-term situation. So I'm kind of sad that I didn't get to play with that. Another one that I would have loved to do would have been Ice Nine Kills story, but they said there's this other company that basically only puts out like these kind of stories with bands like Hailstorm and Ice Nine Kills and stuff like that. I forget the name, Clover, maybe something. It's one of those newer publishers that aren't like big, but like that somehow they had some kind of a deal. But anyway, I think I would. So have you ever heard of the band Dragon Force? It's like a speed metal, like almost throwback to the 80s. But all of their songs are like 7 to 10 minute epics, really fast, but telling like tales of Viking kills and like dragons and stuff. That entire like first album I think would be fun, because like it basically does have like a very like almost medieval Viking like sword and sorcery Game of Thrones feel to it that I feel I would just love, like, because it's such a high impact, high velocity like album that like just plowing into that, like, obviously like how I do with Nightwolf with all the action and they're doing the slobber knocker.
All right, that's cool, gentlemen. We made it to hour 2, so good job. All you guys are great. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Where can they find you and your work, sir?
Well, you can find me on Facebook under Anthony Castro, or you can go to DMW Comics on there. Also, there's dmwcomics.com, where you can go and find digital copies of my books, and basically anything else that I'm doing. I try to keep up with it. It's kind of hard sometimes with kids, but I try to keep up with it so you guys can know current events. I do blogs. I post episodes of my podcast, Castro's Comic Book Corner. I try to release an episode every Saturday. So if anybody ever wants on, let me know. You guys are all welcome. So, but yeah, that's it.
All right, cool. Randy?
You can find the Atlantean over at fundmycomic.com. Just go over and pull that up. We're on the front page. Atlantean Volume 2 is available now, and you can get 1 and the Shadow Kingdom adaptation as well in that campaign. I do 2 podcasts a week on the Indie Comics Network where I look at old comics along with Russ Leach and Glenn Fleming and whoever else we can that can stand to be with us as we look at this stuff. Sunday mornings, I do Sunday Funnies at 9 a.m. And right now we're looking at Crime Does Not Pay, which is a true crime series, comic series that sold in the millions back in the early 50s. That's everything that you would expect from a mob movie or a gangster movie, with a little moral ending at the end just to teach the kids that crime does not pay. But it's got all of those old great 50s sensibilities and the just over pumped everything, like I said, everything you find in a mobster film or those great old noir movies. And then on Friday mornings at 5 a.m. we're currently looking over Weird Science, the EC series of great science fiction stories. Wally Wood, Al Feldstein, just some of the best doing some incredible science fiction stories.
Was the man.
Oh, he was, man. And we're right at that point where everybody's figuring out what they're doing, and every story is just something fresh and something great to look at. And we just love doing that. That's Comics by Night, Friday mornings at 5 a.m. and then Sunday Funnies 9 a.m. Indie Comics Network, Randy Zim YouTube channel, and the Comic Book Black Belt YouTube channel as well. We're over there. And then look for my stuff, Arrow Comics, or type my name in at Amazon and take a look at the different offerings there or wherever, and keep watching fundmycomic.com for a lot more coming.
All right, cool. James, where can I find you in your work, sir?
Alrighty. Well, I have my website, which is angrybrainartworks.com, and I can be found on Facebook with either James Burton 8140 or searching for Angry Brain Artworks there as well, and Damage Inc. the comic. Currently, I am running the Ballad of Nod over on Kickstarter. A quick search there, or following the link that JD's got. I'm going to share a little bit. Those ones will all lead you over to what we're currently doing. But I do also have a store on the website.
All right, cool. Tom?
You can find us on Facebook primarily. There's our website, bigdoginc.com. 15 years of Big Dog Inc. this year. We'll be launching Penny for Your Soul on April 9th, which is a couple of days right before C2E2. So if you're going to be at C2E2, we are in small press right across the aisle from the first row of Artist Alley. So I'll be there with Jesse Witchman. Then in April, we're going to be doing a little tribute short story to the 40th anniversary of the Dirty Pair anime. So we'll be doing that right as we're going into Motor City over in Detroit.
I'll see you there, Tom.
Yeah. And then Traverse City the following week up north Michigan. And then we'll be in Oztravaganza, as always, in New York for the Oz Festival.
Very nice. Rob?
Yeah, you can find me at Lone Wolf Comics pretty much on every social media there is. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Hive, YouTube, TikTok. Though I'm really only very active on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find me personally at Rob Malteri. Same three places. LoneWolfComics.com. You can check out all of my stuff there. The titles, I got a shop there if you want to catch up before the campaign ends, just to check it all out. You can go directly to the campaign at nightwolf.lonewolfcomics.com. That will redirect you to that very long link. And you can find me every other Tuesday with this guy over here. On our comic book workshop show, and check it out.
All right, cool. So you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, DeviantArt, various places. Almost every Sunday night on here, and like Rob said, every other Tuesday night. And this Tuesday will be that night. So go check it out. And just remember, everybody, please go check out the links in the show notes. So those show notes has everybody's links. All of these creators are doing awesome books. Please click on those links, pick up these books. All these creators are doing great books. All of them deserve your support. So thank you so much. And please remember, read more indie comics, especially ours. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. Take care. See you.
Adios.